Right. So here on left, this is an over-exaggerated corner flaw. If you get to this point, you've probably seen a few leaks before. This is a pretty bad issue with your corner on your eavestrough. Lots of times, this eavestrough doesn't look that old, so it might have been just poor workmanship. What we recommend: don't try to fix it or get someone there when it's raining. You're going to want to wait till the rain's gone. You're going to get an expert to go out there. He's going to dry the eavestrough on the inside. He's going to apply a primer and then install a liquid rubber, or MS Detail is one of the products that we would recommend to use. And it's basically, like I said, it's a liquid rubber that prevents water from getting through those cracks and fixing those joints. On the right side here, this will commonly happen more in the BC areas. Alberta's flat. We don't get a lot of trees, but if you do live in an area where there's big trees, right, you should look at inspecting your eavesdroughs in the fall and in the spring, or getting whoever's in charge of your maintenance to have a look at all the eavesdroughs before your winter, especially before the winter, to make sure that all these eavesdroughs are cleared of any debris branches, because if they're clogged up, you're going to have a lot of issues during the winter. That's one of the main reasons that creates issues there during the winter, other than ice damming that we're going to explain. On the left side here, this is an over-exaggerated issue that I've seen before. That might be answering your question, Gary, here on the icicles falling off of a sloped roof. It doesn't necessarily have to be a very sloped roof. Once again, on the very steep roof, you want to make sure that you have ice breakers or ice stops on them to prevent your whole slide to fall over. But I'll let Kristjan speak a bit more on this problem, and he can share in a file that we worked together on that created a lot of problems for ice damming. If you don't mind, Kristjan.
Yeah, sure. So ice damming is essentially, as Tony mentioned before, you need your attic space to be an unconditioned space. So it needs to be the same temperature as the outside air. A lot of times, depending on building design and a couple other factors, you can have a little bit of heat escape into the attic, and that will cause the surface of the roof to be a little bit hotter, and in some cases it's just warm enough that it will melt that snow or whatever kind of precipitation you have that would freeze there and continuously build up, and it will flow. Obviously that picture at the left side there is an extreme example, but it will continue to back up and kind of refreeze, freeze thaw, and you get it in the kind of those shoulder season months. So typically March is when we see it the most. And that is caused by improper ventilation in the attic is the number one factor. I mean, there's some architectural components. If we were to look at this specific example on the left here, that looks like a residential house, and it's very likely that there's not enough attic venting. You can see if you look at the soffit underneath, it specifically has non-vented soffit. Or maybe some minor vent holes there, but it's not your typical corrugated soffit that has all the holes in it. So this would be a very common problem. I know you mentioned specifically that you have a steep slope asphalt roof. So, another potential source of that with that specific property could be sloping of the eavestroughs, which Tony mentioned before. If they're not sloped properly, the rain will shed off of a steep slope a lot quicker than it would on like a 3 or 412 residential roof. If you guys have a 10 or a 12, sometimes it just can't keep up and they're not sloped properly, or maybe you need 6-inch eaves versus 4-inch. Obviously it's, you'd have to have somebody attend and take a very detailed look at it to provide a solution, but it would be one of those two things I'd be willing to bet.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kristjan. Some solutions that we have done in the past, I've been on properties where we've tried everything and it just didn't work. although we increased the ventilation. It was a property that was in between two buildings and had very little amount of sun. And, you know, with the thaw cycle that we were having, he would get sun just a small area moment of the day, then it would freeze up, and there would be these crazy cycle for him. And we've installed a heat trace system on his on the eave, right? It's not the best way to get rid of it, but you can install the heat traces in your Eavestrough and on your eaves if you want to reduce the icicle and ice damming accumulation, if you can't get rid of it any other way. So Gary, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, feel free to reach out at the end of the presentation and we can chat some more. The middle picture here we can see is your, you know, this is what I was explaining when the downspout is connecting a weeping towel. For those of you guys that don't know what a weeping towel is, it's basically just a drain that's recommended to be installed around your footing. So we want to make sure that if there's any water that comes down here or you have any flood, it collects the water and prevents the water from actually going underneath your foundation. And then eventually what happens is that, you know, you get sewer backup, but you can also get flooding backup, which is your soil is saturated. And then eventually water wants to go back up to the surface. And if you don't have a sub pump or a proper drain, or your house is not in a flood zone, water will come back up on your building. So sometimes builders, unexperienced engineers, or just non-informed designers will connect their downspouts to that weeping towel without taking under consideration all the water that's going to add to the system. And if it was properly designed to then be connected to your sanitary sewage system. So sometimes we'll see these backing up, flooding around that area, creating floods in the basement. And sometimes in the most severe cases, what you're going to get on the right side here, if it's not properly designed, is that area here has been backfilled and it's not undisturbed soil. So if it's not compacted properly, that water can go through your foundation or underneath your footings and create erosion. And then you're going to start having severe settlement issues on your building, right? I've been called off and I'm giving you guys an extreme example so we don't have to all panic here. But in Kamloops, these buildings were built on a hill and very poor drainage. It wasn't designed properly. It was a perfect storm. But you know, these foundations had completely cracked due to hydrostatic pressure around the foundations, and additionally, there was erosion caused underneath the footings, and these houses were really falling off of the mountain. So we had to condemn a few of them. We had to underpin, do a lot of mud jacking, and it cost the insurance company a lot of money, and they will no longer insure houses like that in the future. I can tell you that. Is it good idea solution in the winter to manually break ice that has frozen on a shingle roof? So I get that question a lot. I've seen it a lot. I've serviced houses myself back in the days. It's an art. When you want to make sure that you don't just go up there with a hammer and smash the ice, because a lot of the times you're going to create mechanical damage on your shingles, which will then lead to other problems, right? Then again, you want to make sure that you don't put any kind of salt on there either, because salt will react differently depending on the kind of product that you have on your roof and may cause problem again, right? I don't know if you know of any good solution, Kristjan. I've seen some people shoot hot water, shoot air. My best solution, I come from, once again, Eastern Canada, where we used to have these 2-meter storm, is just get on a ladder and shovel my roof type thing. That's the best solution. But other than that, there isn't a magic solution here.
Yeah, I would say, the best solution here is just some, and I mean, obviously it's easier said than done, but some proactive maintenance, i.e. just getting up and removing a large snow load before it becomes ice can save a lot, and it's less dangerous. Typically, if you're up on a roof that's icy, I mean, that's just a dangerous situation to begin with. And the last thing you want to do is cause damage to your envelope while trying to prevent damage to your envelope, right? So I would say the quickest and easiest would be you can pick up a heat trace wire system like Tony mentioned for quite cheap, and it could act as a temporary solution until that ice is cleared, and you can get a longer term solution, and you know, after that storm cycle or whatever has passed.
Absolutely. And they also sell tools at Home Depot. It's basically a reverse shovel with a pole that you can reach up to I know 10, 15 feet, and you can just drop it on your roof and pull the snow off of the roof. And that's another trick that you can do. If you remove that snow every time there's a snow, like you would do your sidewalks, you know, ice damming shouldn't be an issue ever. But you know, we were not always there. We don't always have the time. And if you have a 30-story building or a 5-story frame building, then you're not going to want to do that as well, right? Some people get, once a year in their reserve, they'll have someone come up with a lift and shovel the roof. It really all depends on what the experts recommend.